Hey, Shawna, have you ever felt stuck in a rut or just afraid to do something scary or outside of your comfort zone?
I sure have. And our guest today, we've got a panel on with some of our guests that traveled to Peru with us, and they explain how they got themselves out of a rut, unstuck, and took on this big adventure of going to Peru.
On this women's sabbatical trip? Yes, with people that a lot of them, they didn't know.
Didn't know a soul. One of our guests didn't know anyone. And so it was a big step out of their comfort zone. And they are superstars, and we are excited for you to hear from them. And speaking of adventure, we're headed to Iceland in September of 2027. If you would like to be on that adventure with us, check out the link in the show notes.
And before we dive in, we want to give a shout out to our Girls Talk Healthy Aging listeners, and I'm going to give it to them, the ladies on the panel, Kim, Lenora, and Kathy. Now let's dive in. Welcome to the Girls Talk Healthy Aging podcast, where we dive deep into pressing health and fitness issues facing aging women. I'm Alli Kerr.
And I'm Shawna Kaminski, and together we'll bring candid conversations, expert advice, and personal stories that will inspire and empower you on your own wellness journey.
How fun of a group of gals that we saw recently. We all were together in Peru, and now we're here to talk about doing big things. So I want to find out from you gals this trip to Peru, this big adventure. What was the decision like for you when you first heard about the trip? And we'll kind of just let whoever wants to dive in. What sparked your interest? What made you think this was something you might want to dive into?
Well, I will. I first heard about the trip. I knew immediately I wanted to go. I looked around the room and I said, well, who else is going? And a couple of the girls raised their hand and said, well, I would like to go. But I did. And I had a little issue with my husband. But as time went on, he accepted it. But I was very glad that I did it. It was very eye opening, to say the least. I knew immediately I wanted to go, experienced it.
I like that you mention that your husband was a challenge. And
Yes.
I don't think that you're alone. And I think that a lot of women tend to think, oh, I don't think I should do anything on my own. And was there any kind of strategy or reasoning that you use to decide that this is something that you wanted to do on your own? Because I think many women face this.
Well, I just sort of played that by ear. When I first mentioned it to him, right off the bat, he said, no, you're not. And the tone was for me not to respond. I thought, okay, I told you I'm going. You said, no, I'm not. We'll see. So I paid my deposit. Uh, I guess about December, the subject came up again, and he said I wasn't going. And my response was, yes, I am. And he said, no, you're not. And that tone was, I'm not going to respond to that. And in my mind, I thought, well, I've already told you I'm going. If you don't want to accept it, I'm fine. Well, come February, I thought, well, I really need to tell him I am going. So in February, I did. I told him I was going to Peru and we're leaving in March, the March the 6th. And he said, what? And so I told him, I said, I'm going. I've already paid. Everything's paid for. And I'm going. And we leave on the 6th. And I said, I'll be back the following Sunday. And he was just adamant that I was not going to go. And I said, well, okay, fine, but I'm going. And so when he flipped the calendar over, he's seen it on the calendar, Peru, when I leave. and then home sweet home when I come back home. And he said, what is this on the calendar? It's my trip that you do not want me to go on. I said, but I'm going. And he said, well, what am I going to do if something happens to you? I said, well, I don't know. He said, how am I going to find you? He said, I need phone numbers, I need names, and where you're going to be at every single day. I said, well, honey, my phone don't pick up over there. I said, but I can leave you phone numbers. And he says, well, how am I going to find you if something happens to you? I said, call a mercenary. They'll know how to find me. And he just looks at me. And I'm just like, well, you asked, I told you, call a mercenary. And so that rocked on for about 4 days because we left on the 6th. He finally came around and said, where do you need to be at to catch the plane? I said, well, we've got plans to meet up in Forsyth at the grocery store. I said, we have to be there at 9:30. Do you want to take me or do I need to catch a ride? He said, no, I'll take you. But when we pulled up and everybody, other husbands were showing up, he kind of changed his attitude toward me going because he could see there was other women going and I wasn't alone. And that he had other phone numbers because all the guys introduced themselves to one another. Like if they had trouble, I'm calling you or whatever, to keep up with their wives. And so he finally got okay with it. The first night we were in Cusco, he called me and he wanted to be really rude to me. And I just said, please don't start this now because I will hang up and will not call you back. And from then on, he was nice to me about going. But he's yet to ask me about my trip. He hasn't looked at my pictures. He's only overheard me talking with my grandchildren and my daughter. So I think he don't want me to know that he was okay with it. But yet he don't want to ask me any questions.
And
because
this has been, go ahead.
Because I did tell him the next trip coming up was Iceland. And he just looked at me and didn't say anything, and I didn't either, because I thought, well, I'm not responding.
We were following this saga at the Pink Physique, and it's been fun
Yeah.
to hear Lenora. And I just want to say how proud I am of you, Lenora, because it was just listening to the challenges that some of the different folks had different challenges, maybe doing something out of their box or going going to a different country or just doing a different adventure. And yours, like Shawna said, that is not something that other people don't experience, is challenges with their partner or their spouse or their significant other or family member that just maybe not super supportive or gung-ho about what we're doing. And so I want to say kudos to you and the ladies listening. I know that's going to be so helpful to ladies that may be in that boat and may not feel like they have that kudos cheering on them on, and that you did this, you did it anyway. So you go, girl.
Yes, it was a bit of a challenge because the closer it got, my daughter would say, Mom, what's he going to do? He's not going to divorce you because he's worried something's going to happen to you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
she
coming from
said,
a place of
there's,
care.
yes, my daughter said there's no reason to stay at home because he's going to be fine.
Yeah,
He's scared something was going to happen to me because it
yeah.
was out of the country. He didn't know anything about it, but yet he still didn't ask questions because he thought I was not going to go because he said I was not going to go.
Well,
And I
good.
said, yes, I am going.
Yeah, good for you for sticking with your guns.
It
I mean,
felt good.
it was great that there was several ladies from your locale that, there was some security, and for him to see other ladies from Georgia that were going.
Yes.
Switching gears, Kathy, you came on this trip not knowing anyone. You're a podcast listener, And we were so happy that you joined us. But how is it that you made that choice for yourself?
Well, and I love hearing, Lenora, your information because my experience was totally different. I love adventure. I love doing things. Things my husband thinks I'm crazy. So his entire conversation was, if you get kidnapped, call your brothers. Do not call me. I'm not going to find you. Enjoy your time, but make sure your brothers know how to find you. So that was the difference. No, but thank you so much, Shauna, for that. For me, honestly, I love adventure. Machu Picchu had been on my bucket list for a long time, and I just kept waiting for like my family, whether it was my husband or my son that travels a lot together, to finally make it to my list, right? Because I'm always doing things on their list. And I just thought, no, I'm going to do this. And it's great because it's a bunch of women. And I think for me, what was scary, a little bit scary, was not even the travel, all of that. It was just imitating. It was very intimidating because we travel very differently. Everybody does. And I'm an independent person. What if I get on this trip with 23 women and it's total chaos or total drama, or, you just don't know what you're getting into, right? Like I can handle the things that come on the hike because I've kind of have prepared for that. I work from home. I've worked from home for 20 years. Like I said, I'm pretty independent. I don't have a lot of close female friends, right? And that's what I was really nervous about. And so if I would sit and think about what I'm nervous about throughout the 4 months as I was planning this, it was always the same thing. Like, what if it's a disaster with all of these strangers? And then really what pushed me to do it is, like I said, Machu Picchu, huge on my bucket list. Love the, hiking, a rare opportunity to get to do something like this with, like-minded women that wanted to be there versus somebody I was having to drag along. And then I just kept saying to myself, like, am I going to let the fear or the unknown or the what ifs going to hold me back when I have all of these things I've listed out that I'm excited about? And I thought, no, the worst, and I just kind of played it in my mind. What's the worst thing? It could be this drama or it could be crazy or like whatever it is. And so what if it is? So what? I still get to see Machu Picchu. I still get to meet people I've never, I still get to hear about other people's experiences. And I know, Shauna, for me, and I've shared this with you too, Alli, like that honestly was the best part of the trip. Like meeting the other women, hearing about your lives, sitting next to you and like, where are you from? And what do you do? It was amazing. So the one thing that I took away that almost kept me from going ended up being the best part of my whole trip, in all seriousness. You ladies have been wonderful.
That is so interesting because, like you, Kathy, that was one of my biggest fears is we are hosting a trip. There's turned out there was 27, a couple of people dropped out, but then we had our guides, which were amazing. So, 25 women, how are we going to get along? And that's a lot of people.
It's a lot.
That was one of my fears, but like you, like I get goosebumps when I think of the camaraderie that we developed during those 9 days. It was amazing. So speaking of fears, was there any other fears? Kim, did you have any big fears?
So I have this terrible fear of snakes.
Oh,
So when my granddaughter heard about this, she's like, Mimi, you've lost your mind. You're not only afraid of snakes, you're going to somewhere that has ginormous snakes. And so I know it sounds silly, but we were going to the jungle. And thankfully, I wasn't in the group that saw one. So that was just completely off the table. And probably my other fear was the same as Kathy, just our group of women that were coming, I knew them and comfortable with them, but um, sometimes I feel like I'm socially awkward. Maybe it's more that I feel it than that I am. I haven't figured that out yet, but when I'm put in a situation with, more than two or three people that I don't know well, I'm just very self-conscious and I'm trying to grow out of that. And but I've also put myself or allowed myself to be put in that situation a couple of times over the last year, and I did okay. And then this was awesome. That was one of the things that was better. Everything about this trip was better than expected. Everything. I mean, I knew Machu Picchu would be awesome. I knew Rainbow Mountain would be awesome. Had no idea how hard the Inca Trail would be, but it was awesome. And but the group of ladies, I mean, I felt like I already knew everybody, even though I didn't know them, you know, in depth, but I felt like I knew everyone, I think, from our calls in advance, and that helped a lot. But I was comfortable with a group of women that I truly didn't know. I kind of knew, on the surface level, but it was just such a surprise that that many women could get along with no cattiness, no drama. There, we all just enjoyed one another, and what a rare treat. So that's probably my two fears.
Yeah, I would agree that. So my takeaway from this, and I would like to ask yours, is that, like Kathy, you said, sometimes your biggest fears turn out to be your biggest wins.
Mhm.
And that was what it was for me.
Yeah.
My biggest fear was, how was the group going to gel? And I came home with goosebumps, with
Mhm.
personal relationships, friendships for with people all over now. And so that was one of my biggest wins, to have experienced these friendships. Uh,
Yeah.
Anybody else?
I really didn't have any fears. I'm just an easygoing, laid back person. I'm going to just sit there and listen to everybody talk. If there's anything I need to comment on, I'll chime in. But I had the best time. And you're right, with the other women, as many women as there was no drama. I was, I just kept waiting, like, okay, somebody's going to jump up and say something. But it wasn't. And actually, I look forward to going on another trip. But I tell you what, I just enjoyed meeting the other women. They were all nice. None of them had attitudes. They weren't catty or shun off or anything. They were always jump right in and try to help you. And I'm like, well, okay, I like this. It was
And
it was
this
it was good. It was good.
and this trip was about taking a leap of faith and doing something. So we, like our listeners, I'm just thinking about our listeners right now, and we're hearing these ladies' amazing experiences and how we 20 something women were able to get along, and we didn't know, there when you do things that are maybe outside your comfort zone, or something that somewhere you haven't been before with people you don't know what's gonna come. And we want to encourage people that, yes, while you don't know how it's all gonna turn out, that we can do hard things, and we can do things maybe that where we don't know what the end result is going to be, or we don't know what's over the horizon. And I also want to talk about the hard things on the trip, because I know of some things that were challenging. We talked about how we all got along and kumbaya and all those things. But what about the challenges on the trip? Can somebody share about anything, that like a moment that really stands out for you, that was either physically or mentally tough, where you really had to push through or get over a hurdle?
I can share, Allie. Mine's probably different than what others will say, but for me, one of my fears I had written down before, in addition to the women, was about altitude sickness, right? Because we've really talked a lot about altitude and being really prepared and how we were going to prepare. So for me, the hard moment, like even though the Inca Trail was challenging, I loved every bit of it, loved a lot of that. But the Rainbow Mountain, I had kind of felt bad a couple of days on the altitude medicine, and Rainbow Mountain, I was so excited to go on. Like that was my second top thing. And exactly my fear is what happened. I got sick. And again, I think it was from the altitude medicine, not from the altitude. And for me, that was a hard moment, not physically really, Allie, it was more mentally. Like I'm the personality that I push through everything. I can get through everything. I couldn't get over that. Like I couldn't will myself not to be sick, right? It would just how it was. So for me, it was that moment in my hotel room where I said, I can either be miserable on the bus, trying to push myself, knowing I'm not going to be able to do it when I get there, or I can just release this fear or this control and really just say, okay, what else then can I do? And I ended up having a day tour of the city of Cusco. I would never have had time for that. Like that wasn't even on my radar to get to do. Got to meet like one of the ladies was with me, one of the guides. We got to see so many things, learn about the history. So again, it was one of those things I could have just either, like I said, this run my whole trip and how could this have happened to me? And I just knew this was going to happen. And instead of having that mindset of like, no, I'm here now. This is my choice. This is what I'm going to do. And just embracing it. Because again, you don't have that control. None of us do.
Good for you.
For me, I would say the Inca Trail. It was a mixed thing for me. It was a highlight, but I've said this to Allie and to several people. It's also the second physically hardest thing I've ever done. First being natural childbirth. I mean, physically, I was prepared. Allie has been working with us since September, and I feel like my body held up fine. It was the elevation, it was the pressure and the feeling of an elephant sitting on my chest. And a couple of times I thought, this is what a heart attack feels like. I mean, it was, just that bad. The group started out together and just kind of organically kind of separated into three different groups. And I was in the middle group. And before I met up with that group, I had some time alone. And there were a couple of times there were tears, tears of joy, when I stopped for a minute and look around and saw just how beautiful God's creation is. I'm gonna cry. Sorry. Um, you know, it was like mountaintop, not, no pun intended, but mountaintop feelings. At the same time, there were minutes when I thought, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to finish this. But there's not a plan B. There's not a detour or an off ramp, so I've got to do this. But there were a few times when I just was like, I don't know if I could do this. Not because my legs or anything like that. It was just the breathing was so hard. Take 3 steps, stop and try to get my breath, and take 3 steps more. But when I could finally connected with that middle group, it was a great bunch of ladies. Not that any of the others were not, but it was just we had a good dynamic, and we would kind of alternate who led the group, but everybody else was cheering everybody else on. And it just kind of rotated who was encouraging and who was leading, and it just kind of organically happened. So it was awesome, but it was also physically tougher than I had any idea it would be because of the elevation. Um, that was my challenge. It was all wonderful though. It was worth it. Just like childbirth. The baby at the end was walking through the sun gate. When we reached that point, the sun actually came out, and it was almost like it lit up because it was kind of cloudy most of the day. But when we got close to it is when the sun broke out. So it was like everything but the angels singing.
It really was.
Yeah.
Do you think that you will be able to call on the memory of the challenges of this hike when other challenging things come up in your life?
100%, definitely. I mean, I've had a lot of adventures. They've always been with my husband. So this was my first adventure without him. And so that was new. But I can do this without him. I don't want to. I don't want to do everything without him, but I know that I can. And I enjoyed it. And I look forward to new ones too. But definitely, it's one of those, if I can do that, then I can do this. I feel like there's still more that I've got to tap into than I realized. And that's kind of the point of life that I'm at right now, because I think before I started working with Allie and just making some changes in my life, I'd reached that point where I'm like, okay, well, this is where I'm at. And then, I'm going to coast for a while. And then we start the downward trajectory. And I don't feel that way anymore. I feel like there's more fun, there's more challenges, there's more adventures, and I have things to look forward to. So I definitely will be tapping into what I learned on that hike.
Yeah, I remember on Rainbow Mountain, our little steps were so tiny, just
Yes,
barely moving. And
yes.
I just had this epiphany. And this is things you hear all the time about, like especially mountain climbing journeys.
Hmm.
But I just said to myself, I started to look up and I was like, oh no, that's not a good idea. I started to look back, I'm like, no, that's not a good idea. And then I said, let me just focus on one step at a time,
Hmm.
focus on where I'm at, my feet, just look down at when,
Yeah.
and that I have definitely played that in my head several times
Hmm.
since the trip. It's no,
Yep.
no, don't look forward, don't look back, just stay focused on where you are and take it one step at a time. And eventually I knew that if I did that, I was going to get to the top of that dang mountain
Hmm.
eventually.
Yep. Yep, for sure. And one thing I did want to say too, when we did Rainbow Mountain, when I reached the top, Claudia had been in our group in the middle group, and she was such a just an inspiration and a go-getter cheerleader kind of person. She was already at the top of Rainbow Mountain when Janet and I reached there. And as soon as she saw us, she came running over and hugged us, and you made it, you made it. Where else? Have I ever had the experience where somebody I just met was hugging me and congratulating me and cheering me on, and just one of the many unique experiences, people wise, from this trip.
Does anybody feel any different in terms of confidence or courage based on, just getting on a plane, even when your husband says you're not, or, getting leaving the country with not knowing really anybody physically. We met for months via Zoom, but still taking that leap of faith. Does anybody feel like they could use the experience of that leap of faith to continue on with something else? Does anyone have anything on their calendar that they're going to take on now that you've done Peru, whether it be travel or like learn how to play the guitar or do something different?
I do. It gave me a lot of confidence. I've been married for 40 years and I've never stood up to my husband like that. It was a little scary, but I knew I was going. And I came back with more confidence in myself that I can say, oh, yes, I am going, and you can accept it or not. And yes, I've got some things on my radar. They're not um, definite, but I've always wanted to hike the Appalachian Trail. And my husband has always said, no, you're not. Um, but I don't have it on my calendar. I've always told him, don't worry about me. I'm not going to do it until you die. And so he just kind of chuckles at that. But that's something that I really want to do in the near future. And I've also got the Colorado River. I want to go on a 7 day um, backpacking river. Well, it's like a kayak trip down the Colorado River. Not no rapids. I can't do rapids, but it's smooth all the way, and you set up camp. I mean, you cook your food out. It's just something I've always wanted to do. So I'm looking forward to it. I might put that on my calendar before he dies because I want him to know that I am going to do these things. I feel
I,
so, I mean, the confidence that gave me just to
mhm.
go over there and then come back home and I made it back. Nothing happened. I felt safe the whole time I was there. I did not feel any threat whatsoever, even just walking around town, and I did not know what people were saying. I still felt safe.
I really
So,
liked what you said, Kathy, when you were facing your fears and you said, well, what's the worst that can happen? Well,
yeah.
maybe, all the women I won't get along with, but I'll still get these benefits. So just doing that, what's the worst that can happen? Playing that out in your
Mhm.
mind was maybe a helpful strategy for you.
And I love, Lenore, how you talk about the not waiting till someone dies because we don't know. I mean, life is too short. And I have seen and talked with ladies who no longer have their spouse. And one of the things that they have said to me, this is one of the beauties of getting to work with women of all stages and ages and phases of life, is I get to hear everyone's stories and what they maybe you would have done differently. And one of the things me lady says, it's so important that you have your own things, that you don't just do everything with your spouse, because we don't know. First of all, we might go before they do. We don't know. And so, and then we've never gotten to do those things. But second of all, we don't know when, life is going to throw us some kind of curveball. So, um, kudos to you for now feeling that freedom is what I hear in what you're saying is you have a newfound freedom. So I celebrate that with you.
Yeah, and heaven forbid that something does happen to one of our partners. It might make it easier to be brave and step out, knowing that we've done it in the past. Why do you think that discomfort is important? Why was it important for you to do something that was like challenging? What was the appeal of that? What did you perceive as the benefit of stepping out of that comfort zone, kind of defying your husband saying, I'm not going, you're not going, and you're saying I am? Like, what was the big benefit of that? Not just the argument, but like of just doing the trip for anyone.
The benefit gave me confidence to stand up to my husband, whether he likes it or not. And we didn't argue about it. I just responded with, yes, I am. And when he responded, no, you're not, I thought to myself, that's not worth arguing over because I'm going. And the confidence, it just makes me feel um, I'm more of an equal to him. Like he's not the dominant one taking care of me and making sure everything is fine and I'm safe. Because I guess in the back of my head, I wanted to prove to him too that I don't need him to take care of myself. I'm going to be just fine. So that part felt really good. So and another thing is I went with a group of women. I've never been with a group of women. Um, I've have joined hiking groups that were women and they went on trips, but it was nothing like this. When I started working with Alli, I'm like, oh my God, I've been going to the gym for a long time. And then I laid out for about 3 years, and that's when I started coming to Alli. And I'm like, oh my God, I've been doing this all wrong. And the women, it was just women only, and they encouraged me because my first day was I was late, and it's because I couldn't find anything to wear. I didn't have anything to fit me, but they didn't care. It was just they cared because I was there. Oh, we're so glad you showed up, Lenora. But it's the way the women made me feel appreciated, and you're here, and we're glad you're here. So it was. I wished I had this back when instead of this late in life. But hey, I still enjoy it and I'm gonna grab onto it and hold on to it and just see how far I can go.
That's a great life lesson for our listeners. If you don't have that yet right now, or you've never done
Yeah.
anything on your own, like don't wait. Like I guess,
Yeah.
you're like today's the day.
Yeah.
Now's the moment.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that might not be, world travel. It could be, but it could also be walking into your local YMCA or taking a dance class or just stepping out of your
Yeah.
and into something unfamiliar, because I think that that is where we all benefited. Was we didn't know what to expect, but my expectations were far exceeded. Like I knew that it would be nice and fun, and but it was way more than what I anticipated. And I've done a lot of travel, but not in this kind of situation. And so I think that, yeah, stepping into something unfamiliar, there's always going to be some kind of benefit. And even when it's not the expectation, like Kathy, you had to miss Rainbow Mountain, and Alli, you weren't well for one of the hikes and you had to miss that. And that was a disappointment, but yet you had other wins. You looked for other wins. And so I think that that is important. If one of our listeners is sitting listening to this and feeling a bit stuck, what would be your advice to them?
One of the things to me that really I kept thinking about is, I don't know about you ladies. Sometimes I look and I think, how did I get so old? How did this happen? Like, really, like, you look in the mirror. My mom used to do that. She would walk by and go, who is that lady? Because you don't feel different, right? You don't feel any different, but you realize that. And I think for me, what really resonated is, as women, I think we spend so much of our lives taking care, at least for me, parents. I've had to help take care of siblings, my own kids, friends that became kind of our secondary kids. And I look back and kind of, Lenora, it resonated when you said this. I was always saying, I'll do that someday. Like, I have this huge list of, like I said,
Yeah.
Machu Picchu. I'm going to do that someday. I'm going to do that someday. And all of a sudden, like, when these type of things started coming up for me, it was like, but someday's never guaranteed, like what you guys were already saying. And then I finally have started telling myself, especially even more after this trip, is I'm never going to be any younger. I put this on my mirror the other day. I'm never going to be any younger than I am right now. There's no sense in looking back at like what I could have done 20 years ago, right? But right now. And I think for me, I'm either going to keep wishing 20 years from now that I did something new. Oh gosh, I wish I would have tried that. Or I wish I would have had the career. Or I wish I could. Or I can do it. It might be a fail. I don't know. It might be wonderful, but either way, at least, I can tell myself I've done a lot of uncomfortable things in my life. All of us have. And when it doesn't kill you, kind of makes you stronger. And if nothing else, you have that memory that at least you went for it, that you tried. So for me, that's what's really been like the discomfort and the big change.
No, I love that, Kathy. That is not waiting and saying yes, learning to say yes more instead of, I wish I could, or one day, or I want to do that. I want to try to do that. I love how Shawna, I think what Shawna said earlier, putting it on the calendar. And when you get those opportunities, first saying yes, and then getting those things that we're wanting to do on the calendar. And I love, Kathy, that you have a list because I think that is important as well, is to actually make, and Lenore, you were listing off things that you have already
Yeah.
thought about so I think that's important for us as that are listening or here, is that we also start thinking about those things that what is something that I do find interest in, or what does sound like something I want to do in this life? And yes, we're never going to be as young as we are today, Kathy.
Yeah, and I think back to what one of our recent podcast guests said, and that was that sometimes we don't know what we want because we're so busy meeting
Mm.
everybody else's needs, and you're on this treadmill of like, well, I have to do this, and now I'm doing the laundry, and then I have to go to work, and then I'm packing lunches, or whatever your schedule is. And her suggestion was like, give yourself some time, go for a walk, or just be quiet with yourself for a little bit, because travel is wonderful. It might not be for everyone, but it might be. But there might be something that comes up for you that you realize, hey, I really want to do that. And then finding something to put on the calendar, because someday is actually never on the calendar. And that is what it is for so many people, that, yeah, I'm going to travel someday. A lot of people are waiting for retirement, and they don't even have the health. They might have the wealth, but they don't have the health to be able to get on that plane. I wanted to ask, we did the health coaching, the monthly calls, and
Mhm.
a couple of you are clients of Alli's. Lucky you, lucky Alli. But like, how did that help you prepare? Question one. And then secondly, are you still gonna like pursue health goals? What's up next for you? So how did that help?
Like with me, they coaching that you guys did, I just wanted to share that. Like, even though I go to the gym and I work out, I found what you guys did for the coaching was so helpful for me. And I'll tell
Oh,
you, for
good.
me, um, it was the accountability, because I was
Yeah.
recovering from the stupid Achilles hills.
Yes.
And it was like really easy to just be like, well, I'm lifting weights or I'm doing, and like, and it made myself every month, I would come, like, I would write it on my calendar. And then every time I would look at it, I would go in my own brain, this is where I need to be. I need to be being able to get back on the elliptical by then, or back on the stair stepper. And then I would look at it, and so, I'm not going to lie, some days I'd be like, oh, dang it, that call this week. But it was good because then it like literally triggered my brain. So I just wanted to say, in all seriousness, it was that accountability for me. Like, if you do this again, I found it really helpful, just because
Mhm.
it made me
Nice.
every time look at that calendar and say, okay, Kathy, 3 more days, or I have 4 months left, 3 months, and that was just super helpful. Every time we met, guys, this is what's different than a lot of coaches I've been on with, is it was never like, Kathy, this is what you should be doing. It was every time you guys would say, Kathy or whomever, right? Like, what is your goal for the next time? What are the two
Mm,
things you're going to do? You would make it like a SMART goal, and you put it back on us to have to say
mm.
what that was. And that to me was huge, because then I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to,
Ah.
so anyway, just
You're
want to say
like,
thank
if
you guys.
I pick it, then I have to do
Then
it
I
because
have to do it.
I.
Exactly. It's not like you two are telling me I have to, right? Then I get, but it's like me saying I'm committing to myself. So anyway, I just
Mm.
wanted to share that. I thought a lot about that over the last month.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. That's
You're
helpful.
welcome.
So I upped my workouts. I was doing 2 PTs a week, and I upped it to 3 for that period of time. I wish I could do that all the time, but I don't want to lose the trajectory. I'm trying to say that word again, trajectory. I can't say it right, but anyway, I don't want to lose that. Um, I don't. I want to keep what I've got and keep building on it, because I mean, like you said, we're not getting any younger. I want to I want to keep what I've got. So
Mm.
I want to maintain, but also to keep getting stronger while I can. I know at some point that may change, but while it's not, I just feel like I need to keep the momentum as best I can. But it definitely helped me be ready, because there is no way I could have done those things even 9 months ago. I mean, I probably could have attempted, but I'm not sure I would have been successful. I feel like the key to being successful was everything that we've done for the last several months training, and I know we've been doing just a lot of specific things getting ready for that. And I forgot what the second part of that question was, but yeah, it definitely made a difference.
Yeah, you answered it. I was just curious,
Okay.
are you continuing? Like
Oh
my
yeah.
my big thing was with our guests on the trip was that it was kind of a destination, a goal to get ready for those big hikes, because that was challenging. And even if you
Hmm.
weren't hiking, like there were many challenges, like ch travel is challenging. And so
Hmm.
my thought was, and my encouragement to our guests was that it's not the end, it's just the beginning. Like, what's next? And as you
Definitely.
said, I don't want to lose that momentum. So I'm really
I
happy
don't.
here. And I'm
Yeah.
hoping that that was because it was rewarding in a variety of ways, that
Hmm.
it's you saw the benefit of that those little health investments, that you're going to reap the interest over time.
And having
Most
a trip
definitely.
and something on the calendar pushes us and focuses us in a way that we would not be
Hmm.
focused if we didn't have that trip coming up on the
Hmm. Yeah.
calendar. So that would be something I would encourage our listeners is that that's the good thing about saying yes and putting things on the calendar is it does give you more focus and more reason. We have a why.
Yeah, a little urgency
Yeah.
to get off the couch. You want to make sure that you're ready so that you can fully enjoy that.
Mhm.
So my other question that I wanted to come back to was, if someone feels stuck, what would you tell them to do if they just feel like, oh, I don't know, how would you advise them?
So my daughter was talking to me today. She's an artist. I mean, she also works in insurance, but her giftedness is her artistic ability, and she's trying to focus more on feeding that in some way every day. And she's been reading a book, and I cannot remember the name of it. It'll come to me in a minute. It'll bubble to the top. But she and a group are reading that book together and trying to encourage one another. It's a group called the Artist Way, and they're trying to do different things how you think about things, but she was saying that right now, she said she can't do all the big things that she wants to, but she's like, if I were going to be athletic, what's one small thing that I would do to push myself that way? I would prepare my meals, or I would definitely go to the gym. She said, I can't do all of that, but I can do one small portion of that and build on it every day. So, you know, I was like, that's a good way to think of things. She's just trying to reshape how she thinks about
Mm.
what she's doing artistically in that sort of way. And I think that was kind of a gift to me, because I was like, okay, I could use that. I could do that. I have some things that I want to get done, and I can't, there's such big things. They seem overwhelming, but that one little change, that little 1% change that you make, that you build on, and I felt like that was worthwhile for me to hear that from her today.
That's really good advice, because sometimes the task, the job, the challenge seems
Hmm.
overwhelming, but to get
Yeah.
anything done, it's always just one step. So
Hmm.
what can I do today to move me closer to the thing that I want to do? You have
Yeah.
a very wise daughter there.
Yes.
And I'm sure she's so proud of you for our kids. I don't have kids, but for those that do, your kids see the things you're doing. And I know that she is just
She's
like,
been my
wow.
biggest cheerleader.
And that, yes. And
Yeah.
how, I mean, I know I don't have kids, but I have a mom and
Hmm.
just wanting her to live her best life and seeing that's such a good thing for us daughters to see of our
Hmm.
mothers and beyond down the chain. So
She
thank you
she
for
and,
being
and
super mom.
I don't know about Supermom, but she and my granddaughter have both been very excited about me taking the trip, and just to hear about it. And we're planning a day where they can come over and I can put my pictures on the TV and talk them through all 5,000 of those photos and tell them
Love
about the
it.
trip.
That's
Amazing. If anybody had a wish, we usually end our podcast with a wish for our listeners. If anyone had a wish for our listeners today, what would it be?
Mine would be to just be open, try it. You just really, I think for all of us, for a lot of us anyway, the trip and a lot of things that we do, it really teaches us what we're capable of. A lot of times we have that mental record going in our head. You can't do this, that you're her husband or this or that, or you that's something you can. And all of a sudden you realize something that we do challenging, you were capable of it. And I think that's,
Hmm.
to me, would be the one wish, is to realize that we are capable of doing hard things. We are capable of doing things that maybe others don't think we should do, or that maybe doesn't seem something that would be enjoyable. But you never know, you give it a try, it might be the one thing that brings you joy.
Hmm.
And if nothing else, you're trying something challenging that you can check off your list that you would have never thought for before.
Yeah. I my wish would be just get out there and try it, because anything that you try is not a failure.
Hmm.
You just keep going on. You like it or you don't. So just keep pushing forward and just try it. And I'm so glad I did.
I guess my wish would be to give people a little room, to give them a chance. It's really easy to withhold yourself when you're in a situation with people you really don't know. And I think if people would try to just maybe be open to giving people a chance to connect with other people, it's just really easy to feel awkward and just kind of be to yourself. But giving people a chance, it helps them and it helps you. I mean, I know it fed me, it fed my soul. I don't know if I fed theirs or not, but it fed my soul. And I wish that for other people.
my wish would be like my Rainbow Mountain moment of we don't have to focus on the top of the mountain and getting to where we ultimately want to go or where we've been, but just focus on the next little baby step and we're going to get there.
And my
Yeah.
wish is to find your tribe. You don't have to do big things alone. And so find other women that you can lean on, that you can give a chance to. You will likely be pleasantly surprised at
Mhm.
the strength. I reflect on you, Kim, when you talked about how during the Inca Trail you took turns being the leader, and
Mhm.
we need other women for that.
Thanks for listening. You'll find me, Alli, on Instagram at Alli Kerr Fitness.
And you'll find me, Shawna, on Instagram at Shawna Kaminski. Feel free to pop us a DM with questions and or feedback. If you're enjoying the Girls Talk Healthy Aging podcast, please subscribe and share it with other health-minded women. Ratings and reviews are also much appreciated and help us get our message out to a larger audience.
Until next time, be healthy and be happy.